interested in using the model that made me $34,000 in May? Watch this video and I'll show you how. Welcome to The Advantage. I'm A-Train Bets, and I use my brain to make bets. Now, recently, I have started to make my Major League Baseball model available for A-Train Station members to use as an optional add-on. And we're in the early stages of this as this is being recorded in late July. And this is going to change a little bit over time as we're able to integrate the model more completely within the station. But for now, a lot of people have been asking for a while about getting access to the model. We're now making that available. And I have some other videos that talk about that, but I'll cover a little bit here as well. Basically, the long and short of it is if you have a good model for betting anything, the economic theory behind it is that you should not share that with anyone. And basically it's because as soon as you start to disseminate that information gets used, it gets baked into the market, and you have no edge. So what I've done as I developed this Major League Baseball model this year is keep it to myself. I used it and my business partner Eric used it, and that's been it. And that was fine. It's good. I mean, it made me a lot of money in May. June, I bet it kind of dumb, and I didn't adjust when the model got better, and I lost a little bit of money in June, and then in July, now things have gotten better again. But the reality is that I'm creating something like 13,000 lines in this model file every day. There's no way I personally can put it all into use. And so I realize, like, A-Train Station, we're a fairly small software, not a ton of members compared to some of the others out there. And we're not going to move the markets real quickly with using the model. And so I said, you know what? Why not let some of our members have access to it if they really want it and can start to explore and bet with it. And so I want to talk a little bit about two things in this video. One, I want to talk about why the model is useful. And then I want to talk about how you actually use it. And keep it at a fairly high level because I want to walk through the steps of how you actually literally use it when you get it in A-Train Station today, because there are a few steps that you have to be aware of. Now, the reason that the model is useful and the reason that the model is valuable is that modeling, despite what you may hear on other videos, is really about predicting the likelihood of events occurring, not using any market information, any of the odds, any of the chart books or whatever. Those are trading techniques. Those are looking at market. Those are techniques that are useful in betting, but that's not what a model really is. A model is saying, what can I use outside of that? Because the station's going to let us use that in a minute. Before I get there, what do I think based on what I can figure out about baseball, the sport, or whatever sport I'm modeling? But in this case, we'll talk about baseball. What can I figure out about baseball as a sport? What the teams are, the players are, what's the matchup, what's the pitcher, what's the weather, what's the travel schedule, what's the time of day, the temperature, all of that stuff, right? How can I take any of that and find predictive value in those things and create a perspective of truth reflected in what we'll upload as custom lines, but reflected in my model? Where can I predict outcomes of baseball games better than the market? You say, well, Train, that's hard to do. Well, yeah, there's a lot of people doing this. It's a hard thing to do. And I've come in, but I've learned how to model that. And I've done some things. I have some technical background that not a lot of people have. And I've been able to find a way to get to a point. I have quantifiable evidence that my model does that substantially better than the market in many cases. And the good part is that the market, so when you think about the market, when we plug it into A-Train Station, the market, if it were perfectly efficient, it would literally represent a coin flip. Half of the time it should be on one side, half the time it should be on the other side. It should be exactly 50%, and on the main lines at least. It should be exactly 50%. We know that's not the case. That's why you can do top-down betting and find opportunities, because markets are not perfectly efficient. What we want to do with a model is to say, hey, can we draw where we think the real likelihood of events are at any given point in that continuum? Because keep in mind, you talk kind of about the main lines and the kind of 50-50 either side, but all these different lines have different percentages. So if a perfectly efficient market would perfectly reflect either side being priced exactly what it should be, representative of the odds of it actually occurring. We know markets don't do that, but we trust in the top-down betting, that's what we're trusting it to do. Well, it's nice when you can add in something where you have, here's what the model tells us is actually the likelihood of this occurring, and we're not getting at that from devigging sportsbook odds. Because when you devig sportsbook odds, we're guessing at where between those two odds they think truth is. right? Truth is probably not outside the odds that the book's offering, but there's that range. That's where they're capturing hold. But they're not drawing it specifically in the middle of that. So we have to figure out where's that likely to be. Margin of error. But if I can go in and calculate things and say, hey, based on the projections that I'm able to create and backtest, and I personally with the model that I do, every time I run the model, I backtest the model. And I run it against everything. And then I look at what was the predictive value of the things that I've calculated based on the settings of the model right now and the data that I have from today. Because every day I have more data to work with based on what happened yesterday, right? And then we can tune the model and continue to enhance it. And so that's where I focus my energies on the model and trying to make those predictions of what the likelihood of winning or losing are. And that's where things like the Breyer score come in to tell us, hey, this is what's predictively valuable in the win likelihood, the win percentage likelihood that you're setting as part of the model. Now, the way this works is you take that, which again has no reference of odds from books or anywhere in the market, it has no idea what the market is, but it plugs it in. When you insert it into the station, you say, okay, well, the station knows what all the market is. And now this perspective of truth will help me know where the market is underpriced or overpriced. It is not purely to say everything that's underpriced, you should go play. You still have to be thoughtful about what you want to choose to play, because at the end of the day, sometimes the market's right. The market's right a lot. Public's right sometimes. It happens. It really does. The goal is to be as correct in your bets as much as possible. And that's what we try to do. Okay, so recognize the model, and what I've built with the model is to give us a reasonable perspective of truth, reference lines of this is one perspective of truth of what's likelihood. And the mechanism is designed to underreact, like stock markets overreact to all information, right? That's what markets do. They go, right? My model is designed to be like the anti-Anthony, like very methodical, very reliable, looking at all of the truly quantifiable data and spitting out, hey, based on everything we know quantifiably, here's what's going on. Markets might have more information than that. I have maybe 40 or so situational factors that I've built into the model and tuned them based on what's most predictively accurate. But that's not everything. There's stuff that no one knows. No one knows that, hey, the starting pitcher had a lumpy pillow at the hotel last night. Whatever. You're never going to know that, right? So the markets approximate that to some extent, but my model approximates it to some extent differently, right? And so that's where we're going to focus our energies, is saying, okay, well, the model says this, the market says this. How do I want to play it? There's infinite ways you can work with that information. We'll show you a little bit about that in this now. So understand that's what the model is and what it isn't. It is a reference of what truth could be, trying to underreact to the most recent bias, because that's what markets do, is overreact to the most recent information. We want to take a much more methodical approach. That's what the model does. Okay, so say you've decided, hey, I want to be getting this model from A Train Station. What I'm going to walk you through now is how you actually work with this model once you've added it to your A Train Station membership. And this is going to evolve a little bit. By the time you see this, it could be evolved already, because we are going to make it easier to use. It's going to be a lot more like adding a Sharp book versus having to upload a file or whatever. But I need to give somebody, the people who've already bought it, I need to give you guys the instructions to do this. And so that's what this part of the video is all about. All right. So let's get after it. All right, so we're going to go in. Here's where you land at A Train Station, right? So say you've bought the model. When you get the model, you're going to get two things. You get access to our model members' special channel for each of them. And there's only one right now, but just each of the models that are available that you've purchased, you will get access to a special Discord channel just for that, just for the members of that. So you can have conversations about the strategies related to it or whatever, because keep in mind, you're buying privileged information here. You want to now keep that as quiet as possible, right? Within that little group, you want to keep those conversations in that privileged access area. That's why we create that in Discord. That's also where I'll post Breyer scores every day when I generate the files, as well as letting you know the timing for each individual day. Because sometimes when we have early games, I'll run the file earlier. Sometimes I'll run it multiple times a day. Weekends will be a little bit different. So I'm always communicating there. The way you do this, you have to be a station member, and then you have to purchase. Right now, the price is $199. It could be different by the time you watch this video, but it's $199 for the remainder of the 2025 Major League Baseball season. And we tried to price it as aggressively as we could, so that people would start to use it, and we start to find the best strategies. Because I realized, like, I'm probably by myself, especially when I'm focused on a billion other things, not finding the best strategies on my own. Let's work together. So that's where it is. So you can do that, and you can buy it currently through Venmo or PayPal by sending $199 to Anthony at atrainstation.com on Venmo or PayPal. But keep in mind, you have to be an A Train Station member first, or otherwise you're wasting your money. So just recognize that that's how that works. So once you've done that, you'll come into the station, and you get that Discord access, and then the other thing that you'll get is access to a Google Drive that has the files on it. And so the files will be what you're going to upload yourself into your station account so that you can work with those lines. Okay, so I'm going to show you in this video how to do that. So you come to your landing page at A-Train Station. What you're going to do is you're going to go to this configure, and you're going to custom lines. Okay, this custom lines brings up this page, and you're going to choose the file in that folder. Right now there's 3. I'll always keep the most recent available. So you go into that, we choose that file, and we're going to hit upload, right? So we're going to upload the file, and you're going to get a bunch of errors. Now, these are not real errors. They're errors, but they're not real errors. And what I mean by that is that these errors that are coming through are because I have things in the file for the model where we don't yet have events for them in the station because there's no lines available for them yet. So we're not going to clutter up the station with a bunch of hypothetical things that may not have lines from the books or don't have lines from the books yet. So when you upload that file, you're going to get a bunch of errors on things that are not there. Like today, most of the lines are just there's only like 5 games. I'm recording this on a Thursday, very light baseball day. And a lot of the lines that I've created are for the next few days, because I always go a little bit further out so that you can catch those day ahead lines and stuff like that when they become available. So you upload that file, it's there. Now we're going to go and we'll run a search to actually find the place. But the next thing you have to do, and this is the non-obvious thing, we've got a bunch of questions on this, so I want to take a second to cover this. What you need to do after you've uploaded the lines, or actually you can do this at any time, but you have to do it once, is you have to go into the weightings. And while I already have one, I'll show you how to do this. You'll just hit this plus button and you'll say, A-Train Bets MLB, because you're going to just do this MLB model. What you need is you're going to create this new one. All right. And you have to add a custom lines weight, and you can add it for whatever, because we're not even going to use any of the other books, but you have to enter at least like a 1, because it's going to represent the entirety of this weighting set. Because keep in mind, at A-Train Station, we give you this total customizability of however you want to rate all of your different books that are sharp or whatever. But for the purposes of a model driven play, we want to use the model maybe exclusively. You can always add more to this as well. That's why we do it on this page. But I would suggest starting with just the model, so you can see what the model is saying likelihood is, and then we can see how we're going to interpret that in the actual search. So come in here, A-Train Bets MLB. We got custom line weight 1. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to save it, right? And then I'm going to go to my search. And so again, the search pages, we have all these custom searches. We're just going to go to an advanced search. This is actually going to change again pretty soon. So this might be a little bit different when you see it. But regardless, what you do is you come in here and say, okay, I'm going to use my A-Train Bets MLB. And we can leave this all alone how we have it. Note that we have a bunch of different search sort options and whatnot. I like to do event time for my searches related to this. We can keep the minimum EV percent as 1.5. The whole percentage is not relevant in this context. Stats range isn't relevant in this context because we're not using those. Again, a lot of this stuff is going to change pretty soon, but for today, for right now, for all you people who just bought the model, you want to have this. We're gonna do this. Let's run it and see if we get anything back. We do. Good. So in this case, we have a bunch of lines coming back from a bunch of different books, and you can see tons and tons of potential plays. Now, again, I cannot stress this enough. When you are working with the model, don't think of this truly as EV. You will get yourself into trouble very quickly. And one of the things that I do, because and I want to actually bring this up. In my settings, I set my minimum bet and maximum bet to just a static amount. And the reason I do that is that I'm not bankroll constrained in what I'm betting. I'm actually much less, I'm more risk averse in what I'm betting than my bankroll would allow me to be. But I also know that these percentages aren't completely reliable. It's a perspective of truth, but it's also got to recognize that the market knows things I don't know that my model doesn't. The model's fairly stupid compared to the complexity of everything in the world leading to baseball lines, right? So just recognize that it's a useful reference, but it's not the be all end all. You cannot check out your brain on this and just bet this stuff blindly. Do not do that. What you should be thinking about, though, is these numbers are a relative discount versus premium to the market. Now, in this case, I filtered out the negative EV plays, but I could easily put this to, minus 100. Which might be worth doing for this context. And you can see a bunch of negative EV plays coming in. Well, they're not really EV plus EV or not, because if the market's right, these are going to be the ones that pay, right? If the market's wrong, these are going to be the ones that pay, right? But you got to say, well, in this case, like Blue Jays minus 2.5 at plus 290. Well, the model's saying that they have a plus 146, so less than even chance of winning, but you're getting paid so much more than you should be based on what the model's saying. This could be a very compelling play because the Tigers are a good team. They just got pummeled by the Pirates. You got pummeled by the Pirates. Okay. Detroit Tigers are actually kind of like my adopted team because the announcer from the White Sox went to the Tigers, and Tigers are actually good at stuff. But regardless, the Blue Jays minus 2.5 here, you have some compelling value on, right? And so you can go through, and if you want to say, okay, well, let's take a look at this in more detail, you see, all right, well, we've got a bunch of different books here. I've hidden a bunch of stuff, so I can't see a ton of things, but like this, in this case, like you see, wow, if I'm going to make this play, this Blue Jays minus 2.5, ESPN bet, this plus 290, that's pretty compelling, right? Because now you start to bring in the top-down analysis with the station, all of a sudden, like, wow, that plus 290 is looking pretty good against the market, against what our model says. Like, here's the Novig line from the model. There's no other sharp books, but I say, hey, you know what? Let's throw in here say we think Caesars is fairly sharp here, and we'll throw in a 1 for them, all right? So let's throw in a 1 for them and see how this compares to that. Well, we do that. Now we've got kind of this blend between the Novig line for this, Novig line for Caesars. We still have a positive EV play, right? And so this is how you can start to blend these things together in such a way where you can use market information alongside this reference line source of truth, and you start to come up with plays that are like, wow, this ESPN line really looks like it's probably not good. Now, all these lines look playable based on the model by itself. When you start to blend in the information from the books, you say, well, still compared to that, it looks pretty good, right? Because this is just a blend. Right. So like it's something that you can explore. And that's the thing that I want to come back to is like when we look at these plays, these are just, again, you if you think the market's right and you think like, you know what, the Tigers here are likely to not be scoring well, they've had a rough go of things. The market certainly thinks that. You might want to say, you know what, I get I'm paying an extra 15%, but that's the thing. In regular life, sometimes you pay a premium for stuff. You know, we've been taught in sharp sports betting that you always have to get EV under every circumstance, but EV is a much more nebulous concept than a lot of folks would have you think, right? If the market's right and Detroit is under here, that's the bet you want to be on, premium or not, right? The problem is that we don't know what's going to happen. This game's never been played before. We can only approximate the actual likelihood. So you have to remove yourself. When you start working with a model, you have to remove yourself from these percentages as being EV because they're not. They're just discount or premium relative to the market. Green is good. You're getting a good deal. That's all that means. You're getting a good deal on this bet if you want to make it. Can it compel you to make that? When you start to look at the other factors involved, now you have a bunch of different perspectives. You've seen in the other videos I've long talked about. You want to have multiple perspectives of opinion to understand and to convince you to make a play. You don't want to be out there saying, I got to make some plays. No, you want to be out there saying, hey, are there opportunities out here I can't pass up? Right? That Blue Jays minus 2.5, that looks pretty compelling, even though it's likely to lose. You have to understand it's likely to lose. But if it wins, you're going to win a lot more than you really should. So like that's the key. So like you can see these things and you see, I mean, there's a lot here. And then the model currently for the baseball side, we don't do any player props. It's all totals, spreads, money lines or head to head, and team totals. And that's it. We do it for the full game, first 5 innings and first inning. And it leads to tons of plays. I mean, this is a light day, only a few games, but I mean, just tons and tons of plays that you can evaluate. And that's where it's funny because everybody considers the summertime, especially the post-July summertime until football gets going, as like the worst time of year for sports betting. I'm like, I'm busier than I've ever been because I've got so much to do with these plays, with this model, with the opportunities out there. And that's where like you want to be where the people aren't. Everybody's going to be betting NFL. It's hard to get edge there because everybody's doing it. The market's so much more efficient there. But here we can find these market inefficiencies and we can really cash in. So this is the kind of thing that you're going to be able to do. So again, you can adjust all these search settings. You can do all of that. I have a search that I have just pre-saved. So this is a browser bookmark. This is the kind of thing that I'd be looking at. I'm less inclined to play first innings. I don't like the kind of just randomness of that. I'd like to have more innings so that the data is more reliable, but I tend to do well in the first innings. I just don't like them. Right. And so like you can decide how much do you want to play. I try to bet 10 bets a game, but that's a lot. It takes me like an hour and a half. And when we have a full slate of games, not everybody has that kind of time. So you just say, hey, I'm going to go pick out the, 2 or 3 best deals on each game, and I'm gonna be able to go enjoy my night. And we've tried to price the station and the model in such a way that even casual bettors can get a lot out of it, because I'd rather have a bunch more people who are doing this in creative ways and having a good experience in their sports betting versus having everybody be super sophisticated and super professional about it all. Like, there's a lot of place for amateurs that want to just take things a little bit more thoughtfully. And I think that's really what, we've tried to evolve A-Train Station. Not only, we always want to serve the sharpest bettors out there. We think we have analytics tools that nobody else can touch. And we're trying to bring it, though, at a price point that anyone can afford, because everybody should be able to have access to this if they're going to do sports betting. Most people will self-select out. They'll be like, I can't be bothered. I don't want to learn anything. Whatever. That's fine. You make it possible for the rest of us to make money. So thank you for doing that. But if you are one of those people who's like, hey, I just am interested in this. This is fun. Now, one of the things that we're going to be able to do very soon is we integrate this more fully within the station. We're now going to be able to let people who want to build models, like I'm a model builder, like this is what I've done for my entire career, are build the tools that the data scientists use to come up with their conclusions, with their analysis. I create all this heavy machinery, all this lifting, all these data analytics systems to provide you everything you need. In this case, the bettors are the data scientists that I've been serving for 25 years. And that's what I like. I like to do this. There's other people out there who want to come up with models and do things, and they may be able to bet them, and they may be in a crappy state like Illinois where it doesn't make any sense to bet anymore, right? But you're California, or a place where you literally can't bet, right? So or New Jersey is getting that way too, right? So what we want to do is say, hey, if you like solving this part of the puzzle, you want to create a model that other people can use for the betting, which is what they want to do, then we're going to let you. So just like I'm creating this model, and this is the first go around, we're going to make the Major League Baseball model available. You can access that today. Well, similarly, others who are coming up with player prop models, you just do a model around home runs. You'll be able to sell that through the station. You'll be able to give people, station members, access to that if you want to do that, right? And that's where we want to be, helping people collectively create this community of people being thoughtful about sports betting and recognizing that, hey, there's more to it than this number is bigger and I just carved off a positive EV play against this book that's so stupid, even though that's what they do and they make millions a year. Yeah, there's a limit to that. And that's, some people are like, I love making that money. It makes like free money. And that's cool. You can do that. And at least for a time, you may get limited. You may have other challenges. You may have to do P2 accounts. You may have to do all this other stuff, but that's the game you want to play. You can play that game. You can play that game with A-Train Station. That's the thing. Everybody needs to find their path of what they're interested in, what they're good at, what their risk tolerance is, what their time is, when they can bet, what books they have access to, what state they're in. That's a lot of stuff, right? Not everybody's going to go out and spend hundreds of hours creating a model on top of that, right? Whereas I'm kind of in the opposite problem. I'm like, I'm sick of betting all this stuff. I'd rather go focus on the model. And part of it's like, I got to get this NHL model good. I don't have time. I've got to find the time to make this NHL model work, right? And so if I make the baseball model, everybody go get money with, and then the NHL model will be ready. And so that's the idea. And I know, a lot of people are excited about it, and I'm excited to see what people can do with it, because I would be a fool to think that I can be the best bettor with my model as well as building the model as best I can, right? That's a lot. That's a lot on top of, running this business and trying to design the software and all that. So everybody's got to pick their spots. I talk about specialization all the time, and that's part of this. So anyway, hopefully you have the answers to the questions that you have. If you've just gotten the model, you're thinking about it, hopefully this gives you some insight into what this is, how you will work with it, and why this bringing together of the projections and predictions that come from a model, along with all the market information in the station already. You bring those together and you find opportunities that are really price discounts and premiums relative to the market. That is what the model gives you. And then how you bet with that, that's your art. That's how you figure out the best path. And, every time I run the model, like I said, I back test it every time I run it. So I provide Briar scores across the main categories, like the first inning, full game, money lines, spreads, totals, and team totals. So I provide that every time I run the file for our model members so that hey, here's where the model's strongest. And it doesn't really change much day to day, but it's different every day slightly because there's more information we're working with. So I always want to run it every day just as a calibration point to say, hey, anything weird happen? Anything not predictive that was yesterday? I want to know that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I always check, right? That's why I backtest it every time I run it. So again, love How many people have already joined has been amazing. A lot of people have been joining the station this month now that we've lowered the prices. We're going to try to keep these prices in place as much as we can. We might have to raise them a little bit for NFL season, so get it now while you can lock it in. Again, keep in mind that $99 a month, you can lock in as their current monthly renewal price when you buy now. If you wait until football season's here, you may not have that opportunity. Just saying, just a little note. So think about that, and then just recognize like there's a lot of opportunity to bet the way you want to bet, the way you are compelled to find edge in these markets by using A-Train Station in the flexible way that it's designed to be used. So hopefully that helps you. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to talk about. Let me know in the comments if there's anything that I missed. I've got a bunch of other videos. If you have any questions that haven't been answered in this video, they're probably answered in another video, but certainly reach out to me and I try to help as much as I can. I realize not everybody's going to join A-Train Station, and that's fine. I just want to be a resource to you as you pursue your sports betting journey in whatever way you can. Because if you're watching this, you made it to this point in this video, you're taking things seriously enough that you're somebody who should be helped, right? Like you're trying, you're doing the right things by at least being curious and trying to understand this stuff. So kudos to you for that. Happy to help you however I can. And with that, thank you for joining me on this video. We'll see you on the next one. For now, this train's leaving the station. Until next time, save the units for the bros and do your betting like the pros with A-Train Station. We will see you soon. Thanks, everybody.